right, looks like we've got most of the folks in. So thank you all for joining today. It's a beautiful day here in Atlanta, Georgia. And for wherever you are, it's nice to have some cool, crisp weather. So my name is Leon Morales, and we're going to start the Business DNA, the Financial DNA community call. And I did want to just do a couple things to let you know. We always record these sessions, so you will get a copy of the recording along with the presentation tomorrow. And there is a short survey that we would appreciate you taking because it really helps us define our program for the next community call. We have a really exciting lineup today, and we have two featured guests that'll be joining us today, so we're excited about that. And the whole purpose of the community call is really bringing sort of the DNA practitioners together to share and grow. And we've gotten lots of positive feedback on these calls. We like to introduce some of our new innovation that's coming along, and then just make it a forum to be able to chat. And so if you want to ask a question, put it in the Q&A box. If you want to chat directly to us, you can do that in the chat box. We do have a couple of poll questions, so they'll show up on the screen, and we appreciate your vote. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started. And so most of you know me. I'm the managing director here at DNA Behavior. And we've had such an exciting year this year. Nikki and I have done a couple of webinars around virtual teams. It's been sort of the work that we've been doing for the most part of this year. So always are interested in what's going on in your own workshops or with clients. So if you can share any information as we go through this or in the survey, we really look for that because it's all about human connectedness. And in this very strange time with COVID, it's created a lot of interesting scenarios for many companies and individuals. So with that, I'll let Nikki introduce herself.
Hey, thanks, Leon. I'm excited to be here. My name is Nikki Evans, and I'll be walking you through a little bit of a case study on some things that we've got coming up. So looking forward to that, and then looking forward to introducing our awesome guests today to you. So we're in for a treat. And with that, I will let Leon take back over for a minute.
All right, thanks, Nikki. And I have a request to be on camera, so I may do that. Don't want to interfere with Jake and Gigi, but thanks for the feedback. I appreciate it. So on our agenda today, we're going to cover the referral code overview. We announced that probably 3 months ago around the referral code. We do have, there's folks in your network that are interested, and we always like to give back. So they get $100 towards the package that they are entering into, and you get $100. So we'll review that. And then the Coach Network, which we launched about 90 days ago, we'll actually go over a use case. It's been sort of a successful run. We'll talk about the mechanics of the Coach Network. And then we're very excited. We've got Jake Northrup, who's been with us now for close to probably 7 months. Jake is a millennial advisor, and we're always excited about his energy, and he's going to share sort of his story, how he found us and how he uses Financial DNA. And then we just completed, or we're almost at the completion of our cohort training for Financial DNA, and we have another scheduled class in November or October, so we're going to announce that. And then leave a little time open for Q&A. So that's our agenda. Usually we go about 40 to 45 minutes. So with that, we'll go ahead and start our content. First question, poll question, because you may be familiar with it. I'm always interested to hear, so this will show up on your screen. If you could just take a second to vote, because we're always interested if our messages are being sent out. Sometimes, with our email system, we do get, you do get these emails, sometimes not. All right, we've got, if we could just take a couple seconds longer, and I'll close out the poll. All right, here we go. So believe it or not, 67% of you didn't know about the referral program. So I'm glad that we're actually talking about it. The 33% that do know about it, that's great. Always appreciate that. And we'll discuss that as part of what we're going to cover today. The referral code, we set this up. It was launched about maybe 90 days ago. There's actually a referral code option in your system. So when you're actually in the admin system, if you look at the top middle screen there, learn about referrals, it gives you the information that you can actually just click on And all you have to do is enter the email address. It'll email that person that, about the referral option. So please, if you haven't done it, always interested. It doesn't mean that you're under any obligation to that person, but it's just a way to get the word out about Financial DNA. So we always appreciate the referrals. So if you have any questions about it, just put it in the chat box. If you want to talk to me about it personally, I'm happy to give you a ring about it. So with that, we're always excited about getting referrals. We do know that when a client starts with us, and if they've had a referral from somebody else, they truly stay with us, and it's a great experience. So thank you always for giving us referrals.
And Leon, just to add to that, you can either send the email directly through our system, or I think you saw on there in the image stopped playing, and I think it's going to make me click again to see. There's a copy there too. So if you wanted to send a personal note, you could just copy your code and send it. And then as people sign up, if they just enter that code when they're signing up for a subscription, that will be automatically assigned to you as a referral.
Excellent. Thank you, Nikki.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate the details.
So I am going to transition and take over here from Leon now to talk a little bit about a case study that, or a use case that we had for our coach network. So in our last community call, we introduced our coach network, and we'll talk a little bit more about that here in just a minute. I'll review the details of that. But I wanted to just share a quick case study or use case about how someone used our coach network as a financial advisor, looking to hire a new person on their team. So not another advisor, but looking to hire some support staff on the team. We were able to help them run a few candidates through the DNA process, identify some of those key talents for the role. So we help them really think about, what are you looking for in this role? What are the activities that this person will be doing? What kind of responsibilities do they have? What do we need to have them be focused on? And then what kind of behavioral traits, what would you look for then in a DNA report to see that they might be a good fit for that role, so that you're looking to bring on people to support your business that are a good fit for the role that you have, and that would be a good fit to work with you. So you don't want to hire somebody who is just like you if you're actually hiring for a skill that is maybe something that you don't really have. So in my case, being really spontaneous and creative, if I was looking for someone to help support me, it would probably be somebody really a lot more anchored and process driven. And so I would want to look for that, because likely I would be looking for help in some of the detail work and some of the repeatable process work that may not come as naturally to me. So I'd have to look for that in the profile, but maybe make sure that they, had strengths in those areas, but not so much that we would make each other crazy, or at least we would have to be able to have some commonalities in some other areas that we could connect on and set some really good agreements up front about how we were going to handle those differences. And that's where these comparison reports come in really handy, to be able to look at and see how far apart are we on a particular skill or in a particular area. So what we did with this client is they sent us the hiring manager and a couple of candidates, and we looked at how well would this manager work with the candidate, and then also how much does the candidate's natural behavior kind of fit in with the job skills and tasks that they were asked to do. So we were able to run through the summary report with them to really look at what are the strengths and what struggles may this new employee have with the candidate. What kind of environment do you need to have to make this person shine and be at their best? And are you willing to provide that kind of environment? Is that a kind of environment that you can set up? And then in addition, where might you struggle to work together? Where are you going to be great at working together? Where do you have opposite or different traits and strengths that could work well together? And how are you going to establish that relationship? So helping people think through that. We also help them think through what are some interview questions to drive to some of those things. So a lot of people have really practiced answers to interview questions, but we have some behavioral questions that you can ask around getting examples of certain types of things. So if I were to answer a question about, tell me about a time when you planned a really detailed project, you would be able to tell by the way I answered that question that I don't plan really detailed projects, because it wouldn't be in my nature to be able to give you that kind of detail, where somebody who naturally is very precise and accurate and detailed and planned would tell a much different story about planning an event than I would. And so you can start to hear in that and maybe dig into some of those details, or ask for another example and start to see where, you know, my story about being really precise wouldn't be quite as detailed as somebody else's story. And so that's what we did here, is we really helped this advisor find somebody who was going to be great at the role, who was going to be good with the rest of the team, who was going to be able to work well with the rest of the team, who had enough on their, you know, we also looked at a business DNA hiring report that really helped us look at, are they going to get enough reward in this role? Are they going to get to use their talents and strengths enough? Is this kind of an environment that they might succeed in, so that you're getting somebody who's excited to be there and who's willing to and able to use their strengths in the role, and who feels comfortable doing the kind of work that you're asking them to do. So this was a really great opportunity for especially a small team. When you think about as an advisor having a team, your team is likely to be fairly small, and making a bad hire can be a very, very expensive undertaking, and then having to, you know, find the next person, having to have the difficult conversations, having to try to hold accountability, having to fire somebody potentially, and then having to start that whole process again can be extremely distracting and extremely expensive, especially in a really small business. There's nowhere to hide. So you want to get this process right. And this is something that we can offer to help you with, or help your clients with, if they are small business owners and are looking to do some of this, through our coach network. And so in our last community call, we introduced the coach network. So just a quick review of what that is and some other things that we can do with it. So I give you one use case for it, and I've got another here in the deck. If you go to dnabehavior.com, you'll see an option under solutions for our coach network. And there are several areas in the coach network. We have different programs for personal development and for business development and to develop teams. And then this client facilitation tools tab, or client facilitation tab, is one where we can help you as an advisor if you are stuck on, how do I do this debrief with a client? This is a profile that I haven't really seen before, or I have some questions about how I might want to answer that, or this is a couple that's really different, and I have some experience with maybe one person in the couple but not the other, and I'm really nervous about maybe doing this debrief with the couple together and could really use some support. So some virtual support, to have a DNA expert on the phone to help us walk through the DNA profile and help answer questions. And so that's a place that we can help you. So this pre-recorded report debrief, or the 30-minute report debrief, we designed specifically for advisors to be able to have a chance to work with a DNA expert, either send us a report and have us pre-record, what do we see, what kinds of questions might we ask if we were doing a debrief with a client, or if we were having a discussion with a client, or to have that 30 minutes live with us so we can talk with each other about the client, about what we see, to give you more confidence in working with that client and doing that debrief. Or if you'd like for us to join your client call, whether that's a 30-minute call or a 60-minute call, we can come in and help guide that conversation, help answer those DNA questions for your clients. So those are things that we can offer. Hugh also is very gifted at working with families, and so we can do that as well. So he can set up, we've got a program set up so that if you've got a family that needs to do a debrief process, we can do that. So we're happy to serve you in all of these ways on our coach network, and would welcome any questions that you have about that. I saw that there might be a question in there. I don't know if it's about this or not. Looks like Leon got it addressed. So questions or comments about that, or about the use case that I shared, if you want to drop them in chat or drop them in Q&A, that would be that would be great. We're happy to answer those. Or there's also going to be time at the end of our session today where you can ask questions. And with that, I am going to I am going to move on and introduce our next poll question. So Leon, do you want to do this?
Great, thank you, Nikki. And the poll question, you know, we did launch the Coach Network probably about 3 months ago, and some of you had actually taken advantage of it. And that was really born from, we had a number of advisors and clients that didn't necessarily want to get into the discussion with the client or needed additional information around it. So that's why we launched it, as Nikki was saying. But the question is, how likely is it that you would use or refer clients to the DNA Coach Network? So I'm going to present this really quick, and if we could, and you can, you know, just let us know, because we're quite interested in the feedback. We want to make sure that it's serving your needs as well. So if you could take a second and answer this question, that'd be great. All right, we're getting the votes in, and I'll just leave it open a few more seconds. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. And here are the results, Nikki. We've got very likely, we've had, you know, 50%, and then I'd like to learn more, 50%. So that's great, it's positive. We have had probably a little more activity on the business DNA side, you know, with hiring. So just make sure that you are aware that that is an option if you need a little bit of help, as Nikki was saying in that last report. So with that, we'll turn it back over to Nikki.
Great. Thanks, Leon. And I am super excited to introduce our next guest, Jake Northrup, the founder of Experience Your Wealth. And he's going to talk to us about his experience with financial DNA. And so Jake, I'll invite you to pop your video on, and I'm also going to stop sharing. I understand that you want to share your screen, so I'm going to stop sharing here and let you pop onto video. And make sure that you unmute yourself. There you are.
All right. You guys hear me okay?
Yes.
We do. Great to see you, Jake. Thank you for joining today.
Yeah, well, thank you all. I really appreciate the opportunity. So my name is Jake Northrup. I'm the founder of Experience Your Wealth. I'm based in Bristol, Rhode Island, but I work with clients virtually all over the country. I specialize in helping young families that love to travel balance mountains of student loan debt with some of their other financial priorities. So I definitely take a life planning approach to financial planning. So that's where I was really attracted to financial DNA, because, you know, I wasn't really looking for a standard risk tolerance questionnaire where someone picked a portfolio, but rather was a starting point where I can talk to people about how they're hardwired to act around money. Because as I approach financial planning, you know, I have them paint the picture of what their life would look like if they were totally financially independent, but that means nothing if I can't communicate to them the right way. So as I think about where, you know, the industry's going and where the trends are going, I think there's a much more greater emphasis on the behavioral side. And I thought this was a really useful tool that's going to go nicely with my approach. And what I've seen, which I was very surprised to see, but very pleasantly surprised. I don't know if we're getting questions if this is related to me or not.
Just looking to zoom in on the report a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
We're talking about it.
So I'm going to get to that in
There
a second, but where I originally decided to use this on was actually after I started working with clients as part of like my discovery meeting process. It worked really well. Clients liked it. And then I took a sales course, and I was related to financial planning, and I learned that it's really, really helpful to actually get prospects to commit to something between meetings. So what I found myself doing before was, like, when I was talking about how this would look like if we worked together, I found myself pulling up a report, and I'm just an open book. So I was like, hey, this is what my wife and my reports are. Like, this is kind of the process that I go through, and it ties nicely into my story. And what I realized was now I frame it as, even if we don't work together, I can send you a link and you can take this, and it would fold really nicely into a follow-up conversation that we have. So in other words, when I meet with a prospect, the first meeting, I'm showing them this as a part of how I work with people. And then the second meeting, I would actually have the reports. And if it was a couple, I would have it side by side. And what I've found is like couples just laugh at it, and I think they think it's fun. And so for example, like I have mine and my wife side by side, and I'm able to talk to the prospect about how their differences and scores mean how they communicate and how I communicate with them. And I've found that this is a really big differentiator. I don't think anyone else is really doing this with clients. And even if people don't end up working with me, but frankly, I've seen my close ratio go up a lot since implementing this strategy. I'm able to just connect with them on a deeper level and show like, I'm really going to tailor my communication to how you like to hear things, right? So some of you might be familiar with this report, but it shows comparisons in terms of different categories. And then I also show people their summary report where I'm able to go into more detail and, you know, say things like, oh, you know, spouse A, you really like to keep things high level. You don't want to see things in advance. Spouse B, you like the details. You want to think things through. So therefore, this is how we would work together. So I like using this as a prospecting tool, which frankly, that was not my intention when I started, but I found not only does it enhance the client experience, but it also just shows how you're different and how you do work. And it's a very nice, small, easy commitment that someone can do in your prospect pipeline to commit to something and then use the reports for follow-up conversations. So I'll pause there. I'll stop sharing as well. I don't know if anyone has other questions or anything, but I'm happy to answer more about that.
Awesome. Thanks, Jake. And if you've got a question for Jake, either raise your hand, you can unmute yourself, or pop it in the chat or the question area, and we can make sure to get to those questions. I'm curious, Jake, what when you said that your close rate kind of went up from doing this, what did clients start saying to you that was different from kind of the conversations that you had before you implemented this to when you did do the implementation?
Yeah, I think it was just like the technology. I think that was really cool because I've had a lot of people take this and then think, wow, that's me, and wow, that's us. And frankly, for couples, I think it like brings awareness into how they've been communicating, how they've been butting heads. And again, I've had a lot of people laugh that way, but it breaks down the barrier so I can then ask questions about that and dig a little deeper, right? So I've found that I'm able to have just more meaningful conversations with prospects earlier on, and they're more willing to share how they like to be communicated with and how they like to work, with it being something that's more natural, as opposed to me asking a question like, how do you like to be communicated with? And people don't really know how to answer that, but if you have some type of framework that they can build upon and explain and ask questions about, it's just a good starting point and a natural way to talk about it.
Excellent. Thanks so much. And it doesn't look like we've got any other questions right now, but if people are still thinking, we have some opportunity at the end for Q&A, and it looks like Leon's jumped on video, so I'll let him speak.
We had a request for me to be on video, but I really want to just thank Jake. I think, and Jake, if you could just leave your camera on, I just wanted to ask you a couple questions. You know, and you and I have had a couple conversations, but I think it's very impressive the way you sort of jumped in and started using it. And do you find that, you know, when you give it to a client, you know, one of the questions we've always been asked from advisors is, I'm not sure my clients are going to take this questionnaire. And our answer is always, you're right, they won't, because you're not sort of advocating it. So the way you've described it, the transparency, like showing your own report with your wife, builds a lot of trust. And do you find that to be the case when you do the sort of the loyalty and sort of the retention with your clients? They feel very bonded to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think me starting with, hey, this is mine instead of a sample client. I think that if you're comfortable with that, I think that goes a long way because it kind of takes that barrier down of not feeling comfortable to share information, where I think it just makes people more comfortable with it. And I think I've just framed it as, you know, this is the benefit of you taking it. So rather than just saying, take this questionnaire, it's, you know, this is how my wife and I communicate about money. This is what it means for us. I imagine it could be helpful for you. So if you'd be willing, you know, I can send you the questionnaire. It ties very nicely into a follow-up conversation, especially as we think about how we work together. So it's always out of the lens of how does this benefit you? And frankly, I haven't had a single prospect not take it after I sent it, which is really interesting. I have had a few not end up working with me, but like it's something, it's an easy like icebreaker, and it's kind of something that people like to laugh about and take.
Yeah,
we do have a question. Sorry, Leon, we've got a question here in the chat about, Jake, do you use the talent report as well, the couple talent report?
Yeah, good question. I don't. I think that's probably just an educational part of my end of not fully knowing how to use it. I was a little worried about clients feeling like I didn't want them to think they weren't capable of certain things early on. So that's where I wanted to keep it more of high level related to communication as opposed to, you know, how good they might be at certain things. That could be something that I look into in the future after I have that built trust, I have that credibility. But I didn't want to like come off too quickly when they're getting to know it related to talent. Like I wouldn't want someone to think, oh, I stink at setting budgets or something like that. But if someone has like a score that shows they appreciate to spend, I'm able to flip that in a positive way.
Awesome. And Jake, I know you probably, being a millennial advisor, probably don't have not necessarily sort of multi-generational work, but have you done any sort of work in families, like with the parents or maybe a child in the family? Just curious if you've done that.
Yeah, good question. Unfortunately, I haven't. I have showed this to other advisors though, who probably have done that. I'm very targeted with who I work for. So unfortunately, I don't work with people nearing retirement. So I'm really with that young family crowd.
Yeah.
But I have had some questions about, and this is something for me to explore in the future, of do I have clients take this over time to show progress in that learned behavior part? And that isn't something that I've done yet, but I'm sure that it could be something in the cards.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Jake. We really appreciate you sharing the knowledge and making it seem very easy to use and certainly building the trust. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for the opportunity. I think it's a great tool.
All right, Nikki, we'll turn it over to you.
All right, thanks, Leon. And Jake, really appreciate it. I think it was really helpful for everyone to hear. So let me get my slides back up again. There we go. So next up, I just wanted to give a quick plug for our financial DNA accreditation training. So this is something that we offered here. We're just finishing up the cohort that is in right now. They finish next week, and then we're starting another cohort October 21st. So we meet every 2 weeks. You get 90 minutes with me and your cohort of trainees, and so between those sessions you do some self-study on the reports. There's some videos and some slides that you can get through, some case studies that you can look at, and then we come together and work as a team to review those things, to answer your questions. And so we've really enjoyed doing this program. It's something that you can join from anywhere. We're doing these on Wednesdays from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. until 1 p.m. Eastern. And like I said, you get that 90 minutes, not just with me, but with other advisors who are going through this training. So you get some opportunity to practice in a safe space and to ask your questions. You can bring real clients to the classroom if you want to talk about something that you've seen in your real practice. We're always happy to help with that. In addition, we have a Microsoft Teams set up so that you and other folks that have gone through the remote training can stay in touch with one another, build more community with one another, ask questions there, and keep conversations going with one another and with me as you continue to practice. And with that, I'm super excited to introduce Gigi Verrey, who's going to tell you about, she's in our current cohort of financial DNA training. So I want to introduce Gigi, and I just need to make sure that I've made her a panelist. So bear with me for just a second.
Yes,
it looks like Leon's done that. So Gigi, I'm going to ask you to turn your video on and unmute yourself, and we would love to hear from you. What has been your experience with the financial DNA training?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Nikki.
Hi.
Just want to let you guys know that it's been an exceptional experience. It's been, I've got to say, fun, because as an initiator, I kind of need things to be fun, and it's definitely fun. But not only that, it's other than fun and engaging, it's really enlightening. It's been fantastic to get to know how the other folks in my cohort are using it. And I've learned so much from their insights and their perspectives and their thoughts behind how they use it. And as Nikki was just saying a couple of minutes ago, really, when people ask specific questions, it gets you thinking about how they're using financial and behavioral DNA, and what are the approaches that they're using behind it. And so I have found the cohort and the training to be invaluable.
Awesome. Thank you, Gigi. Does anybody have questions for Gigi about the training program, what her experience has been, or for me about what it's like or what to expect? We'll give you a second.
I'd like to interject a little bit. So Gigi was in my very first class back in 2015 when I first started training financial DNA, before Nikki started really taking it and making it what it is today, which is much better on the delivery. So I'm sure Gigi could speak to that. But Gigi's really been a long-term client with us and one of our biggest fans. And we're, I guess it's one of those things that it's a continuous learning, because Gigi was very proficient from the start, and just to learn new ways to view it. And so Gigi, I guess this class, even from when we taught it years ago, has been quite enlightening for you.
Yeah, it really has been. I mean, of course, you did a bang-up job, Leon.
That's what I was looking for, Gigi.
But I think, first of all, it's always good to be reminded of and to be a part of a cohort, because that's how I learn. I'm a collaborator, and whether or not that's sort of your first or second primary behavior, we can all learn from somebody, right? And how they're participating with their clientele, and what also importantly, what they're learning about themselves through the process. And I've learned quite a bit in this last several weeks about myself and how I can do a better job at understanding, how to relate to my folks, my clients, and my husband as well, and coworkers, etc. So I wouldn't say, I wouldn't say there are vast differences, only because this stuff is so hardwired, right? But I would like to say, with Nikki as facilitator and the wonderful cohort that I'm in, that every single time I've been on the call, I've learned something. I've taken away an aha or two or three, and I've been able to turn around and use that information in a conversation almost immediately.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Awesome. And I always like to tell the story, Gigi, if you're okay with this, that Gigi came with her business partner at the time for that first training.
Yeah.
And it was such an enlightening experience for her business partner that she left Gigi's firm. And, sort of the enlightening, she realized she wasn't in the right type of work.
Yeah.
And that was really quite powerful to do that. I remember Gigi called me and said, "You're not going to believe this, but Jill's actually leaving." And I felt so bad But she said, no, this is actually really good because Jill's sort of been going against the grain most of her career. And now she's able to explore a different career path. So
Yeah,
it's a great
yeah.
story.
And for me, honestly, I mean, that's a really great example, Leon, of how powerful this is, because, you know, if this helped my then business partner realize that she wasn't fit for this, it saved us a lot of time and a lot of aggravation on both of our parts, a lot of time and money on both of our parts, mainly the money part on my side. But I mean, think about that. If we can take that and bring that to every single one of our relationships, and this stuff is so powerful. Of course, everybody understands the power of it, right? That's where we're on this call, or I would hope. But the cohorts and the learning conditions have been fantastic.
Wonderful. Thank you, Gigi. It's a pleasure to have you on the call today.
Of course, it's there's no, you'd have to keep me away. I was on a crazy phone call, which I was able to use some of my DNA to get off the phone call. But yeah, you couldn't keep me away.
Yes, if you know Gigi, she's a creative initiator, and that's one of the reasons I love working with her. So thank you, Gigi.
Thanks, Leon.
Thanks so much. We really appreciate it. And let's see, we've got something here in the chat. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So I am going to move on here to a couple more things that I heard from the training. Key takeaways about, you know, the robust discussion, to think about, even from we've got somebody who's kind of more in the business DNA world, but thinking about how financial DNA might be an interesting play with some of her business clients, and then, you know, learning from folks that are actually in the financial industry. Market mood. So if you haven't done a lot with market mood, that was a huge takeaway. For one of our participants saying, you know, because it gives you specifically what you can do and say, and which mode, should it be a phone call, should it be an email, and what to say. And even if it says an email, you know, the guidance around one email is different than the guidance around the next for a client. And then, you know, again, hearing how other people are using the tools and how they've used it in the past and what their best recommendations are have been really helpful for some of the folks that have been in our cohort. We've had a fantastic cohort this time around. And so really expecting to have another great cohort. And the good news is if you join the training in October going through into December, you'll be included in the same Teams community with the cohort here. So you get to interact with Gigi and the rest of her cohort as well. So we'll just keep growing that team, that training team environment, so that you have a wealth of cohort participants and people from other cohorts, and you know, depending on the year, we may have a cohort reunion where we just get everybody together and allow you to interact with each other again. But just to you know, expand that learning and continue to have a place to go ask questions, a place to say, hey, I had this come up. Have any of you seen this with a client? Is there something that you would recommend we do here? That's available ongoing after this training. So the training, you get, you know, 4 sessions that are led by me, but then you also get kind of lifetime access to this team where you can continue to interact with one another, continue to find resources, and to share with one another. So we're really excited about that. And with that, I'm going to open up for questions. And I know Leon may have seen a couple that I missed. But any questions, any thoughts that you have that you want to share, or if you're willing to share your big takeaways from today, was this valuable for you? What kind of things do you want to see us cover in the future? Is it more like this, or is there something that we didn't hit on that you would really have loved for us to address and talk more about? We love this community and would love to continue to have more interaction. So some really great energy in the chat today. Super excited about that. But what questions do you have for us, or any thoughts you'd like to share, or any big takeaways from today?
And Nikki, I know we have several people on the call that have been through the training, so I'm sure they probably can add to it. But one question that came up on the testimonials, because I know I've talked with Gigi, and she uses market mood with client. Really, when she's ready to call a client, you sort of refer to it. Gigi, do you mind just answering sort of how you use market mood? Because I think it's one of the underutilized tools in the Financial DNA program.
Yeah, it may be, but to me, it is like a key component to Financial DNA, because it works both ways, right? So if the market's trailing down, it's been a really crazy whippy market the last couple of weeks, to say the least, several months, but the last couple of weeks, we're at the high at the very beginning of the month, and then we have these sort of these corrections, if you will. And what I do is I open up Market Mood, and it allows me to look at my top holdings, my top clients. Now, over time, from using Market Mood, I have an idea of what and how they might want to be communicated to. But in a quick instant, I can open up Financial DNA, I look at Market Mood, and I say, okay, this is Claudia. Let's see how she's been doing. So what Market Mood does, if you haven't jumped on to look at it, is it shows how she would be feeling after and as we've experienced the last 7 days of the market, right? So if it's been up, it might be a conversation, and what's so fun about it is it just gives 3 gestures, right? So you've got a smile, you've got a frowny face, and you've got a neutral. But most importantly to me is, let's say I see a big smiley face. I may check in, but Market Mood tells me how to check in, right? Should I call her? Should I email her? What is it, a quick call? Do I send her information? So what happens with Claudia in this case is, if there's a smiley face, I might call and say, hey, how's it going? Does this make sense? Now, if I know factually, if I picked up the phone to call her, by the way, she would want a quick email. She wouldn't want to call from me. So I'd send a quick email to say, hey, do you need to talk? Everything okay, right? So if the market were down, I would know factually that I'm going to send her a quick email saying, do you need to jump on the phone? If the market were up, I might call to say, hey, how are you? And to say, how are you feeling about things? Should we jump on the phone and do an annual review? Because I know it may sound manipulative. I don't mean it to sound manipulative, but the whole reason that we do Market Mood and we do Financial DNA is to understand our clients, and when they're most receptive, right? Most receptive to hearing the information we need to tell them. So if Claudia is going to be in a better mood and want to be able to talk about her money, which she never wants to do, it's better for me to pick up the phone or send her an email saying, hey, let's talk about your investments now, right? Sure, great. So that's an example of how you could use Market Mood in the 2 different instances, right? On the high of the market, or when the market's doing well, or the low, and how to best communicate with that one person in a couple of different scenarios. And then in general, just as another, obviously I love Market Mood, but the other way that you can really use it is at a glance. You can get an idea of when you should be scheduling annual reviews. So if the market's down, let's say you want to, you basically want to stack your reviews, which is what I do. I do September, October, November as most of my reviews. And what I can do is, if I know that 10 of my clients, 10 of my 50 households, really market goes down, it doesn't matter to them, then I can jump on with them and get those annual reviews taken care of, and then get back to my folks who might be a little bit more higher maintenance or need a little bit more hand holding. So Market Mood also helps me organize the way I reach out to my clients as a whole.
Awesome. Thank you, Gigi.
You're welcome.
Big fan of Market Mood. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Nikki, I don't think we have any other questions in the question box.
Okay. Well, really appreciate everybody taking time with us today. Leon, I think you've got one more poll question here for everybody.
That's one of the questions we like to ask because we do, as you could see from Jake and from Gigi's participation today, that we like to get real case studies, not just us talking about sort of what we do. So the question is, would you be willing to share a scenario or a case study on your business? Yes, no, I don't have one right now, but I'm willing to share. And just take a couple seconds getting the voting in. And we promise if you don't feel comfortable on the camera, we don't have to have you on the camera. I appreciate Gigi and Jake. Jake is an influencer and Gigi is an initiator, so I wasn't too surprised that they were okay to be on camera, but we don't want to force anybody. And with that, I'll close down the polling, and it looks like we have yes, but I don't have one to share yet, not at this time. And there will be a short survey that'll be sent right after this webinar. Please put your contact name, and believe me, Nikki chases me down to make sure I can, we find out if you're willing to share, and we'll schedule you for one of our community calls. And with that, Nikki, I think we are, if there, oh, there's a question in the question box.
There is. Yeah, so you can kind of manually do that, and Leon, we can probably find the support article that's related to that. But yes, there is a way to automatically, it will take the S&P 500 and do the rolling 15-day average. There is a way to manually enter that that same number for the Brazilian stock market or whatever your index is. So there's a way to enter kind of that index number that would be similar to what the rolling S&P 500 is, and then you can see the same there. So
yeah, there's an input button that you can scroll up or down. I'm sure Gigi has used that. If you have a bond fund or a different stock market exchange that you want to simulate, you can do that. Great question.
Awesome.
All right. One question that did come up, Nikki, a little bit earlier. We have different packages, you know, the DNA package, because we have Gigi is in what we call the wealth mentoring package. So she has a lot of reports, a lot of discoveries as part of that. It's a more advanced sort of package. Not everybody has that. Some have the introductory package. I believe, Jake, that you've been on the introductory package. So there's some different reports. So I think one of the questions was, I didn't think I had access to that report. So that could be, if you want to discuss that with me, just let me know or send me an email. I'll be happy to review that with you. We want to make sure everybody has the benefit of the reports. You know, there's just different packages. So I want to make sure that we weren't trying to show you something that wasn't sort of a standard. So, all right. And then just the last thing, we do have Hugh's book, which launched in January for Lee and Hugh. It's really leadership behavior DNA. It's all the things that we talk about. And it's been great to be able to do that. Hugh and Lee actually run a webinar once a month and really talk about a little bit more on the organizational development than the financial DNA, but it's available on Amazon and it's all natural behavior based. So please feel free to get a copy of that on Amazon. And Nikki, I don't know if we have any other questions, and maybe have any come in.
I don't think so. Vinny, nice to see you. Thanks for joining us on the call and for your active participation. And I will say that, you know, the Leadership DNA book could be a great recommendation for your clients if they really want to learn more after they've done their report with you and they get really interested and want to learn more. That's a great resource to refer them to, that they can really dive in and learn a lot more.
Great. We really appreciate Jake and Gigi for being panelists with us today and sharing sort of wisdom and how you use financial DNA. Anything we can do to help support you, you know, I'm here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right. Thank you. And I think we got a wrap, and we'll make sure you get the recording and the presentation.
Thanks everybody.
Take care.
Bye.